Okay, we are here with City Council candidate Angela Scott. Angela, thanks so much for joining us today. You want to just tell us a bit about yourself and why you're running?
Yeah. Well, I am a military veteran. Let's see, a community activist, if you will, involved in several organizations within the city. Mother of three young adults that are still living with me because they cannot afford to live in Santa Monica. And yeah, and I'm also a doctoral candidate in organizational change and leadership. So I've spent the past several years studying structure and organizations, and I'm very staunch education advocate, if you will. So I believe in cultivating a strong education experience in order to transition that to workforce. So I stand on a lot of I guess you would say a lot of principles in understanding how we can be the most equitable in this city, especially from even an affordability standpoint. And I felt like this was the time I had been working in various, like I said, organizations from the League of Women Voters, understanding voting rights and how we can cultivate our next generation of voters into, a lot of the social justice perspectives with CRJ, Community for Racial Justice, and Coalition for Police Reform, and then also being vice chair on the Public Safety Reform and Oversight Commission. So again, I've really leaned into a lot of the various commissions and organizations to have a full perspective on opportunities, uh, gap opportunities that we can resolve, hopefully, collectively.
Thank you. So, I wanted to start by asking you a little bit about your time on the Public Safety Reform and Oversight
Yes.
Commission. So
Uh-huh.
you were kind of there on the ground floor. I mean, we got to know each
Mhm.
other in 2020,
Yes.
a
Yes.
big moment of reckoning for Santa Monica,
Yes.
and you saw this commission start as a committee, and now you're the vice
Mhm.
chair of the
Mhm.
permanent commission. So,
Yes.
how has your views on policing, public safety, changed during that time? How
Yes.
has the
Yes.
realities on the ground of crime in Santa Monica changed? And
Mhm.
how has
Mhm.
policing changed as a response to this commission existing?
Right. Okay. So first and foremost, I want to be clear. I was never anti-police. Okay. So it was just a matter of, with every organization, understanding that no one's perfect, especially in police, right? Community policing. And so from the ground effort, I looked at the lens of, and actually as a military member, we always look at how we can improve our systems, and for that perspective, really leaning in and understanding what the community was saying as far as accountability, transparency, right? Community coalitioning together, community engagement. What were the gaps and how we could fill that? And so as we worked through the committee into the commission, I think we had the OIR report that had 44 recommendations. Now, the point that we really need to lean in on that is SMPD took those recommendations and addressed all of them, right? And so here is where we are today when we talk about what were the results, right? What is it? What is the ROI behind the concerns that we had? Starting with transparency and accountability. First, they did take accountability as far as there were some missteps from an organizational perspective, from not everything from not having your camera on during some of the core incidences to not really having that logistic space, ground zero, if you will, right? So these are the things that they have addressed. Additionally, they've addressed even one of the things I really leaned in on was how can we best improve our social outcomes, right? When we are dealing with folks that have mental health challenges. Now, while our police department is skilled, we have our mental health workers that are far more skilled, and we just couldn't at the time coming up until I would say even the last few years, they just didn't have enough folks in place. But I think y'all have heard about the therapeutic treatment team that is now out there addressing on the spot crisis, right? So these are the benefits, the fruits of that. We've also enabled, deeper, more community engagement, if you will. We have the the NRO officers reporting in on all of the neighborhood associations, letting them know what's going on in the community. We have coffee with a cop. Like, these are all the things that have improved over this time of reckoning, right, if you will. And then, just like I said, and we work lock and step as far as, here are some other opportunities, we're really, and even I have within the next few months, really leaning into alternative response, right? What is happening on the homeless side as well? Like, what are our community and health administrators doing in that piece? Because again, a lot of times everything happens in silos. And so if our residents are not at the city council meeting, or they're not tuning in to any of the things, they aren't aware of what's happening. And that's that bigger piece with community engagement, is how do we bring everyone, or have town hall and community conversations to have everyone on the same page with an understanding of, here's what we're addressing and here's what we still need to address. And so, like I said, having that perspective from the ground floor, I've learned that, we've had several successes, but there's still more work to do, right? And that we're all together. It's not like, oh, it's PD, that we're not like that. We're all trying to work effectively, if you will. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, totally. Let's go to Isabel.
Hey, Angela. Nice to see
Isabel.
you.
Nice to meet you.
So you mentioned workforce development
Yes.
quite often in your questionnaire.
Mhm.
And so can you highlight for us what you have done professionally
Yes.
in your education, as a
Okay.
PhD candidate,
Yes. Mhm.
and what you would want to do with that specifically in Santa Monica?
Okay. So with respect to workforce development, on my professional side, I was global lead for a number of our employee resource groups, from the veterans resource group, women's resource groups, Black resource group. And so we really leaned in and took a look at how we can not only open the door for equity, but leave it open and create opportunities for more marginalized folks to enter our area, our expertise within the gaming and technology industry. So what we did was we created an assortment of pipelines. I worked specifically with HBCUs, historically Black colleges, universities, HSI, Hispanic serving institutions, as well as the tribal colleges, institutions as well. And so we created what we called Intern Rush. And that was like a virtual workshop where we worked with our early careers team to expose more students to the opportunities of applying for our internships. Thousands applied. However, if you don't have the right knowledge on what's expected on your application, as well as how to prep for the interviews, you'll never make it past having just hit submit, right? So we dove in further and we created opportunities to have office hours and things of that nature, right? So we really dug in from that perspective. And then also, in addition to that, I also, when I was attached to a studio in Canada, Demonware, I worked specifically with the Immigration Employment Agency in Canada, and also with the Canadian Military Force. And this was during the time of the Great Resignation, if y'all recall, 2022, when everybody was like, I'm out. You don't see me, you don't value me. So in that perspective, we found that Vancouver, British Columbia, is one of the key destinations that immigrants go to that are highly skilled in technology and engineering, art design, all of that. So, like I said, I created that partnership, and we ended up kicking off our diversity in action work fair, right? And again, virtual scenario where we again hired the same immigrant employees who had no idea that they had the opportunity to apply and work at our company. So I did that. I created that in Canada, and it was from, everything from British Columbia to Ontario to Toronto and those areas as well. And so again, we had strong ROIs as far as what that looks like. Now, from this side of the local level, I think all y'all know I was president of the foundation, working with the chamber as we created. What was created was the Next Gen Mentorship Program. And so with that, I worked with Judy to build out the technology component of it. So we had our gaming folks on participating year after year with that part of the mentorship program, because that specific piece is dealing with Black collegians in Adelante, the two Black and Brown allyship groups out of Santa Monica College. And again, it goes back to, if they see you, then they can believe it, conceive it, and achieve it. And so for them to see other engineers, other art design, game designers, and even just talking, and not even specifically about gaming, but understanding how to navigate these spaces of microaggression and things of that nature. And so again, we were very successful over the past few years in that next gen mentorship as well. And so now, and also I've worked with Dr. Devon Smith at Santa Monica High School, right? In his CTE, College Technical Education Program, where they're teaching Java, and they now have like a medicine department. They have a law academy, right? And if we know how to connect these dots to Santa Monica College and to like the healthcare industry, we are right here in health tech world, right? We have UCLA, we have St. John's. So if we can connect all of these pieces, we are exposing our next generation of workers into far more than they could ever imagine. But they have to know that the opportunities exist. And so I think y'all can see my passion in that. But I believe that we truly need to connect the dots and leverage what's happening from an educational perspective from K through 14, if you will. Did that answer?
It certainly did. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Andrew.
Good morning, Angela.
Good morning,
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So I liked your questionnaire specifically around accountability.
Yes.
So in your mind, like, how do you think we can create more accountability and accessibility to government for folks in Santa Monica?
Okay, so that looking at accountability first, I want to just really dive in on one of the things from a change management perspective. Accountability also leans into taking ownership of wins and losses, right? And so from accountability perspective, we call it conscious accountability. When we do lean in and we talk about, hey, this has occurred, it's unfortunate. How do we move forward? So that's the first piece, right? And I'm saying that as a step back in what happened during our May 31st George Floyd scenario, right? So conscious accountability would have been, hey, this occurred, but here's what we're doing. Here is how we're going to move forward. We've created, and which we did, the Public Safety Committee. And then here are the next steps, right? So that is one sense of accountability. Another sense is again, let's talk about it. A lot of our decisions, if you're not key and tuned in, either at the city council meeting or watching virtually, you aren't aware of what's happening. So accountability takes a look at, how do we bring about more community engagement? How do we take what's happening here to Broadway, right? To Broadway Street, and how do we go into that? And that, like I said, that's very key in how we do policy. It's like we have to really take a look, self-assess, take a look at ourselves and say, okay, we aren't doing all that we need to be doing. We aren't doing the due diligence of that specific piece. So that's how I kind of address accountability. And I think your other portion of that was,
I think you answered it, like the accessibility of.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah. And so, yes. And honestly, with that accessibility piece, I have been championing, lobbying, trying to get our Public Safety Reform and Oversight Commission back on quote unquote YouTube, on the YouTube channel, because right now it's recorded. But if you aren't aware that it's recorded and you haven't tapped in, then you're not aware of what we're discussing over here, and you're not able to also fully tap in from that perspective. And I have, spoken to countless folks who they aren't able to show up that every first Tuesday of the month, right? So we really need to look at how we can, again, community engagement. How do we lean into accessibility from that perspective and make sure that everyone has access to all that's happening in city council?
Okay, Mike.
Hey, Angela. So, leaving aside the downtown and commercial boulevards, and any upzoning that's mandated by the state, what
Mhm.
upzoning do you support of the single-family neighborhoods and the multifamily neighborhoods?
Okay. So with respect to the single family neighborhoods, upzoning, I first and foremost, I support affordable housing because we need to have it. We're just at a loss right now as far as a shortage of making it available. So with respect to upzoning, I support it, and I know people are going to be upset, but I do support it in our areas of north of Montana and Wilmot. I think you can make it happen, but we just have to again work collectively and look at what that looks like from a infrastructure perspective. But you know, as we say, this city was built went from segregation to inclusion. Let's talk about the past. Built from a segregated city, a sundown city, into more inclusion, right? And so that inclusion piece means looking into the neighborhoods that folks kind of like have issues with building housing in, but we have to address housing in all areas and see how we can create it, but still sustain the character of the city, right? Still keep that in order and also look at what's feasible in those areas from the impact of traffic and the things there. But so like I said, I am open and I think we should look at these other areas and see how, if there's underutilized areas, let's take advantage of a lot of those underutilized areas and create housing that's there. I think one of the bigger stereotypes, and it's sad to say, is when folks think about affordable housing, they have these thoughts, these negative thoughts of, oh, this is the kind of neighbor that I'm going to have, not realizing that, I was once on Section 8, as a single mom of 3 kids, even when I worked in my first beginning years of technology, right? And then I moved into moderate housing. But the thing is, like I said, going back to, we have to also help to push away what those stereotypes of quote unquote affordable housing are and who is associated with living in those housing, because those are also young families that, yes, they're struggling, but they still are able and they're beyond what the labels say they are. So to your point, upzoning in those other areas, looking at how we can do that, still, of course, along the commercial corridors and all of that. But let's also really take a look at these areas and see where we can put a duplex, quadplex. I know folks are tendency with townhouses as well, but whatever we can do to move the needle as far as housing goes, without impacting, right, of course, those who are already there, then we should do that. Yeah.
And when you mentioned Wilmont, do you include upzoning the rent-controlled housing stock or not?
No, I mean, no, because we have to be careful about our rent control stock, right? And that's the thing. We have to be careful about what's there, that rent protection. And I mean, that's the big part of it is how do we continue to make sure that our most vulnerable residents aren't pushed out, right? So that's why I said that's a deeper look. And again, at the end of the day, I don't profess to know everything. And so that's why I surround myself with folks who do, so I can study more and understand what those impacts are. And that's having conversations with like y'all, and then also with SMER, and really saying, okay, let's look at this. Explain to me what this impact looks like. And so that I have a better idea when I move forward and make informed decisions, because I am set on making the most data informed decisions, but also really having an eye on how does that impact our most vulnerable? Because we shouldn't be impacting them at all at the end of the day.
Okay, thanks. Let's go to Sean.
Hi, thank you. What is your vision for transportation and mobility for our city? And in particular,
Mhm,
do you see greater integration for public transportation, bicycle infrastructure, and pedestrian infrastructure
mhm.
within our city, but also connecting us within the broader region?
So from that perspective, and we've actually had presentations at our Public Safety Commission on transportation and the different modals. I think that it is needed, and this is a city that, let's be honest, people commute in and out, right? To come to work here and also to for tourism and things of that nature. So I think we should grow fully in that and make sure that we do have protections in place. So if and at the end of the day, work from that zero ground perspective of the vision zero, where we are very aware of sustainability, of air quality, right? But at the same time, making sure that we do have the pedestrian sidewalks that are available, the motorized sidewalks for those that are not motorized, but the bicycle sidewalks as well, bicycle areas, because I live right off an area that they just built that out and it's so important, right? Um, and so I think that we should be very cognizant of all the modalities that everyone uses, from walking to scooters to, bicycles to motorcycles to cars. Like everyone has a space within here, but we need to be really thoughtful on how we build that out and how we protect, again, our the ones that are walking and the ones that are on scooters and bicycles, because we know that that's also part of high traffic conflicts, right? So we have to be I mentioned to SMPD and also the transportation to create more heat maps so we can see where those high traffic, high crash areas are, and be thoughtful in how we create more protective zones for those. So I mean that is definitely important. I can cross my street and uh daily, like I test it when I go, and I'm in a crosswalk and I will cross the street, and I guarantee you I will almost get hit by a car. The only one who stops for me is Waymo. And so I know that this is something that we need to address thoughtfully and create more of the stoplights and everything, that everyone knows, hey, a pedestrian is here. Because you also have to think about it from a family perspective and having children that are walking to and from school or to and from, like, getting ice cream. We have to make sure that everyone is safe in these zones.
And just real quick, the rail line,
Yes.
the D
Yes.
line currently is scheduled to
Okay.
go to the Veteran
Okay.
Hospital. Do you support extension of that into Santa Monica?
So with the extension of that, again, I think thought goes into it. So we do know that folks use the D line to go in and out of the city. What I am against is that end of the line. I support it if we can also guarantee safety precautions and safety measures, because they'll say, oh, that there was the Metro Police. They're not always there, right? And one of my children was accosted riding the line. So I'm very aware of, we need to have safety precautions in place. But again, that is part of transit, and we do need to expand it. But I am interested in expanding it deeper into the west side, right, to make that more available as well. So again, with thought, with feet, and to ensure that there is protections in place, so that, because that also curbs, hopefully, supposedly, um, the amount of unhoused folks that come in and out of the city, and other, folks of that nature that, quote unquote, are part of our issues that we're trying to address. So did that answer your question, Sean?
I guess I'm
Kind of,
confused
sort
with
of.
the E line. There's the E line and then there's the D line. So I think you were talking a little bit about
Yeah.
the E line and then there's the
D-line,
D line
yeah.
subway.
D-line,
But
I'm
thank you
sorry.
so
Yeah.
much. I think you kind of addressed
Okay.
them both. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. It's protections, whether it's the E line or the D line. We have to have protections in place, right? But we also know that that's part of building out our business structure, right? So if it's going to drive more folks to come and spend money here, right, then we have to be thoughtful on how we can make that happen.
Okay, let's give Keith the last. Or did you have a question, Keith, or you dropped
Yeah,
off?
I do. Yeah, I was
Okay.
just putting my hand down.
Yeah, go
Hi,
ahead.
Angela. How are you doing?
Fine, how are you?
Good, doing okay. So when we all recognize that the city that continues to face kind of challenging fiscal prospects,
Mm-hmm.
and it's clear that the realignment plan has produced
Yes.
positive short-term kind of
Mm-hmm.
outputs and
Mm-hmm.
movement. Uh, Also, you described that part of that is through that SMART method.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I was curious, how do you see, kind of continued involvement and evolution of like alternative long-term innovative revenue strategies to
Mm-hmm.
enhance the city's fiscal health, right? So alternative
Right.
long-term innovative revenue strategies to
Mm-hmm.
enhance the city's fiscal health. And while that happens, how do
Mm-hmm.
we continue to drive small business growth?
Okay. So first of all, I look at it from the point of view of I don't believe that we've done enough with tapping into the opportunities we have with our creative technologies that are here, creative companies that are here, right? Because we are surrounded by at least 5 different gaming companies that have tournaments. Riot has their own theater down there where they run their gaming tournaments, but our other organizations do tournaments across the country. We've yet to have any kind of tournament here on the beach or in any space in downtown. And I think that's an opportunity to take advantage of that. I think there's opportunity to utilize some of the spaces to do any type of game launches, right? Inviting tourists and residents to come in and check out the games through on-site playing. We've yet to tap into any of that, and even have more pop-ups, right? We have a lot. Like I said, this is a creator. We are in this creator space, and we also have a lot of creator industries that come through. And so we have a lot of those that stream that also come to the beach and things like that. So there are opportunities to create various types of festivals, whether it's, like I said, anything from gaming tournaments. We already doing the music festival, but really lean into the deeper cultural festivals, the music festival, art walks. Like we have an opportunity, even with the different neighborhoods, like of course they have theirs, but let's lean in and tap in and expand and assist them in providing more far-reaching festivals that they're doing as well. Because again, everyone's coming to Santa Monica. Let's give them more reason to come from a creative perspective and leaning into music and art and technology, right? Let's give them things to do while they're here by expanding that whole space. Because again, we could have business mixers. There's a lot of things that we have yet to do that we can, and that's also working in line and in step with the chamber on what that looks like, what that vision looks like. And then from a small business perspective, there's a couple of things. First and foremost, I would say strengthening the mentorship that happens or happens, we'll say happens, air quotes, with the small businesses. Once they open, do they have a quote unquote sister company that kind of walks them through on the ins and outs of sustainability? Like, this is what I know to be true as far as once I open up, here are the processes, because those processes I know are not in place as far as assisting small businesses in that regard. Right. So I think that's another opportunity that we can fill in creating. And I've talked to, like I said, Judy Krieger, we talked a couple of years even about how do we strengthen new businesses, small businesses especially, but they need that support. They need to understand that they need to know who they can tap into for assistance. If they're having issues with unhoused folks that are right there in front of their business, do they always know who to call? Right. And if they're having issues with their landlord of their building, do they always know who they can reach out to in addition to that? So I think it goes back to making sure that our small businesses have full support on being successful. And I think it also goes back to, because I was on the task force for rehiring, local hiring during COVID as well. And I was part of building out the Virginia Avenue kitchen, right? So that's one incubator. But when we talk about from a small business perspective, I think we have opportunities for additional incubators as far as all of the entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs and small business folks. Here are these workshops and here are these toolkits that we're going to provide for you in order for you to be successful and sustainable, especially during these times where it is difficult to continue to have a brick and mortar versus a kiosk. And for those who are interested in kiosks, here is a toolkit for you as well on what sustainability looks like for you operating in this type of structure, if you will.
Thank you for that.
That kind of,
Okay.
well,
Thank you so much, Angela. Appreciate you stopping by and
you're welcome.
letting us know about your campaign.
Thank you. All right.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great
Bye-bye.
day.